Good morning. I'm going to start with some instant value. Come to a forest early morning during fog and frost. Find an uneven number of trees, so 1, 3 or 5 trees that are evenly spaced out. Take a picture of the middle with a wide-ish aperture, play around with the apertures, and you'll probably get a pretty decent woodland shot. There you are. You've already learned something.
This video is sponsored by Epidemic Sound.
So today I want to share with you how you can get your work noticed in the coming year. The reason I feel I can do this is because I managed to do it during 2022. At the beginning of 2022, I was an amateur photographer. I'm finishing this year as a photographer who earns money from photography. I am not the best photographer by far, especially on YouTube. In fact, I'm probably not even in the top 100. But I have got my work noticed, and I want to share that with you. And I think there is one main reason that my work has been noticed, and that's story. You see, it's actually easier than it ever has been to be a pretty good photographer now. There is so much information available on YouTube from people like me who share what we know with others, so that you can learn quite quickly how to become a half-decent photographer. But that also means that it is more difficult than ever to get your work noticed. Once upon a time, you used to be able to just know how to take a good exposure in college or school or something. And if you did that, you could become a professional photographer because nobody else really knew how to function a camera. Now, technology is so good that even entry-level cameras can produce really good quality images, and learning the skills is so accessible now. So in order for your work to stand out, you really have to add something to the photos rather than just taking the photos themselves. And I think I've just found a really good example of this. So I've just found a perfect composition to demonstrate my point. You've got this lovely frozen grass all along here that leads directly to a door that somebody's put in a tree that's centralised and is separated from the background and is catching some side light. I mean, it's like, how could I not take that picture? It just revealed itself to me as I walked over the hill. And it's this sort of thing that I'm talking about when I mean storytelling in your pictures. That path leading to a door in a tree, that's more than just a picture of a tree, isn't it? There's obviously something walking along that path. The door isn't actually a door that opens and closes for someone to live inside, but it triggers the imagination of the human mind. And by making a story about that, the picture that the viewer sees becomes more than just a snapshot that somebody's taken. It becomes something in their mind, something they can think about and really be drawn in by and have interest in. And if I didn't include the storytelling part of that photo, it wouldn't even get a second glance. It's the story that makes that photo what it is. So how can you introduce storytelling into your photos? Well, if you've watched my channel for a while, you know that one of the biggest ways that I do storytelling is by the music I use. Now, I had already thought this video before Epidemic Sound asked if they could sponsor me, so I don't want you thinking that this has been wedged in as some sponsorship thing. Genuinely, even before I use Epidemic Sound, music was one of the biggest things that I used in telling a story. So I've been using Epidemic Sound for a bit now, and because I really like their service, when they asked me if I'd like a sponsor video, I was like, yes please, because I really like what they do, and they still give creators loads of freedom to do what they want with their videos, as long as you just include a little bit about what they offer. So I was like, it's a win-win. I get to offer you something that would be really good for your photography. I get a little bit of money to share it. Epidemic gets a few customers, everybody wins. That's how sponsorships should work. I hate it when people try and wedge sponsorships in that's got nothing to do with the subject. So when it comes to music, your choice of music can completely change the feeling of a photo. It's really important that you choose the right sort of music. Now, we've all got our own different tastes and stuff, but when it comes to storytelling, there are certain types of music that can make a massive difference to how people perceive your photography. Social media is one of the main ways to share your work these days. So music does play a massive part in that. You might notice that I've been doing a few experiments with short form videos recently, and I'm coming round on that idea. I'm going to do a whole video about that another time. But there's one element that links it all together, and that is music that you choose for your videos, for sharing your photography. Now, trying to find music that you can use can be really difficult. I know I struggled when I first started because I tried YouTube's own audio library, and there were some okay songs in there, but there's an awful lot of trash. For example, this is one song I used to use. Now, that is royalty-free music, but it's terrible. It doesn't tell a story, it doesn't help my photography come across as better. In fact, it makes me look quite unprofessional. Whereas using a professional service like Epidemic Sound, it means that you can use any of their music that's all royalty-free in any of your social media. They've got a couple of different plans. They've got a plan for commercial businesses, but they've also got a personal plan for people like you and me that just want to use social media that is loads cheaper, and you get access to loads of different types of music. So if you click the link in the description, you can check it out, see what sort of music you could use in sharing your photography on social media. And it's also a great way of supporting me as a creator as well, as sort of giving something back to me for these videos, while also getting something out of it yourself. It really is good for everybody. I don't know if you ever find this, but when I'm doing photography early morning in the woods, I find myself trying to be extra friendly to people I see, because people are off on their nice morning walk through the woods and they look over in the distance and there's some creepy photographer with his camera. I'm always worried about how I come across walking around with camera gear in the woods. If you ever see a fellow photographer in the woods early morning alone, just show a bit of sympathy to them, because you're probably thinking the same thing as them. Now, another massive way that you can introduce some storytelling into your photography is by introducing a living element to it. So, for example, including humans in it or including animals in it. I found a good example of that here. Here you've got this lovely frozen path here with loads of frozen leaves on it, and these two trees that are creating sort of a repeating pattern. Now, the actual picture itself is perfectly fine. It's nice, but there's no story to it. It's just a picture of two repeating pattern trees in the path. Whereas if I take a picture of myself on this path, introducing that human element, that element of life, means that you get an extra layer and there's a story to it. It's not just a picture of a tree in a path. Now it's a picture of somebody walking along that path. So having that story leading up to the photo that I talked about earlier, and then having a story within your photo, that catches people's eye a lot more. It's difficult to explain it, so I'm trying to keep it really simple. I hope this makes sense. But when people can create a story behind your photo, whether you give them one by leading up to the photo or by making a story out of your photo, that's what will separate your photography from somebody who just takes snapshots. Man, it's been one of those weeks where it's been just an absolute privilege to be a photographer. The conditions have just been absolutely incredible. We've had like frost and mist non-stop this week. It's been absolutely glorious to be part of it. I got some photos that I'm really pleased with this week, not just for video, but out and about on family walks. Got an unbelievable picture of a deer that came right up to us the other day in a deer park while we were out on a family walk. And it's conditions like this that I feel like you're always working in cheat mode. It's so easy to get good photos in weather like this, but that's all about the conditions. The next way that you can introduce storytelling into your photos is by making your photos look like it's taken through the eye of a human. And in order to learn that, watch this video here. I'll see you next time.